Hey, listen up. Yeah, we here and we locked in. Let's keep it going all the way to the top 10. We feel the turtle, so it's no other option. Fred and Ryan, just watch them. Let's take it to the max. It's the Shell and Tell. They come with all the facts. It's the Shell and Tell. Let's take it to the max. It's the Shell and Tell. They come with all the facts. It's the Shell and Tell.
Welcome back to Shell and Tell. Today is Monday, August 5th, and surprise, surprise, we are back unannounced. Ahmed back with the show. Just want to get it back into this fall swing of things and really bring Maryland football back into the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was just kind of a perfect storm to kind of be able to get this going. And like you said, unannounced, kind of weeks ahead of the season opener. Figured this was the perfect time to get up and running. So let's fire it away.
Yeah, I mean, everything seems new. We got the new quarterback, obviously, the whole new Big Ten. I mean, who saw this coming with Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC joining the Big Ten? They thought it was weird when Maryland joined the Big Ten. Now we got California involved.
Yeah, it's going coast to coast like that, obviously, with USC coming into town this year, going to Oregon this year. Got Washington on the away schedule for next year. So, I'm sure once we get to basketball season and Kevin Willard wants to talk about all the flight schedules and all that stuff and having to deal with all that travel, it's a hot topic, obviously, this offseason. But, like Mike Loxley said, chance to break up the status quo.
Yeah, I don't think football is that big a deal with the weekly options. I do hope that eventually they get to the point where they just decide that they like pair up back-to-back weeks. Like we'll go out and play USC and UCLA the same year and just have the team stay there a week. I think that might work out better in the long run to have those kind of like East and West Coast pairings. But not that big a deal when you're talking about once a week trips. The basketball and things like that is definitely where that's a nightmare. Willard was already complaining all last year about we got in at midnight, this, that, and the other, and now you're at another 3 hours of some of these flights.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what that feedback from is next year. But yeah, like you said, just kind of how it all kind of formats. I don't know that keeping them out there for a week, just kind of with school and whatnot. I think that's kind of logistically, I think it'll be kind of tough. But yeah, obviously, I think basketball. If you get a chance to go out there, play USC Wednesday night, play at Oregon Saturday night, get a chance to kind of. I think that there's some flexibility there, but yeah, like you said, plenty of excitement with all these guys, 18 teams officially now in the Big Ten. So yeah, we'll see how the quarterback battle shakes out.
Plenty of moving parts. I've said from the beginning of the expansion that this was always going to be the Big Tens. There's two more teams coming, and then they'll do their rebrand to the Big Tens and move on with it. I think. The removal of divisions, though, it does take us out from under the thumb, for good or bad, because every year I was like, is this the year we get Ohio State? Obviously we've had our share of losses versus all the big teams, but every once in a while we got somebody on a down year and took care of business. Ohio State slipped us. We had the one overtime loss as close as we ever got. So we will still play them here and there. But what do you think the overall getting out from the big three every year, the winning the first five and then having to play those guys every year and it be a whole different ball game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I was talking about it with someone a couple weeks ago. I think, when you just look at the Big Ten as a landscape now, Oregon, I think, kind of enters that top echelon kind of. Right now, I think it's Ohio State, Oregon, kind of 1A, 1B at the top of the conference. Ohio State, I was leaning Oregon at the top at the beginning of the summer. I've kind of steadily found myself leaning towards Ohio State, closer and closer towards the season goes. But in terms of Maryland, I mean, you look at Rutgers. Really, big reason why that they're being talked about as I think Kirk Herbstreit said that they're a surprise playoff contender to kind of be a surprise pick. I think that's
absurd.
I think it's a little bit projectional, but obviously with their returning experience, Common On guy back, I think that's a big reason why. But the elephant in the room is that they have a very favorable schedule this year. you have a chance to potentially avoid Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon in the same year, and even if so, you play one of them. That's a favorable draw for a Big Ten team, and in a 12-team college football playoff. Yeah, it makes complete sense why Mike Locksley says, yeah, we have a chance to break up the status quo. You talk about the player culture, just kind of with the developments within the program at Maryland, the pieces, the roster upgrades. I think obviously going into this year, we'll see just kind of with the quarterback and offensive line, how that kind of fares. But just kind of with the pieces that are kind of being put together with this 2025 class right now, I think it's a chance for Maryland, like exactly that, to really capitalize in these next couple of years.
It'll be really interesting to see if that easy schedule swings around in circles, or if somebody just keeps ending up with the easy schedule. We'll have to see. You bring up Rutgers, obviously that ended up being our protected rivalry. I mean, I guess we're the two new kids on the block. We came in the same year. I guess you could make some arguments on that being our rival. I was a little upset to not just get Penn State to be able to play every year, but you can see the goods and bads of that. As our newest hated rivalry, USC, seems to be replacing Penn State in a hurry around nowadays. So, how do you feel about the protected rivalry of Rutgers being basically the only guaranteed game we got?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it makes sense. I think just it's very natural for just the average fan, especially the average Big Ten fan, to kind of Maryland, Rutgers, just like you said, they came into the conference at the same time. Rivalry, I think it's kind of been an interesting term the last couple of years with Maryland, just kind of being able to really dominate the Scarlet Knights. But again, I think it's fair. I think if you look at Penn State, obviously, I think Maryland would love that. But I think Maryland, maybe if there was a little bit more success these last couple of years under Locksley, maybe things kind of change and whatnot. But obviously, Maryland did go into Happy Valley in 2020 to pull off that win. But I think that's kind of part of it. But I think just the fact that you avoid, obviously, like you said, the Ohio State, the Michigans, and whatnot, I think that's a win. But for Maryland, I think it's a chance. Didn't see it too much this 2025 cycle, but a chance to continue to go into Rutgers or to New Jersey, to kind of control that series against Rutgers, and continue to kind of expand that footprint where it's DMV, and you still have that brand expanded into New Jersey.
Yeah, either way, there was no real rivalry in both directions. I mean, we have not beat Penn State enough to call it a true rivalry. We just hate them. Rutgers has not beat us enough in order to call it a rivalry. But I am glad to have a team that should be beatable every year. Like you can call them a contender if you want for the national championship, but again, it's mostly due to schedule. It's not due to anything else. It's because we're going to get, 4 teams into a playoff from the Big Ten, and if you have the easiest schedule in the Big Ten, you have a chance of sneaking into the top 4. Like, that's the only thing that makes you a contender, and hopefully we get the easiest schedule one of these years and not at Oregon and at Penn State. That still keeps in USC at home. That still keeps us in a pretty similar schedule, I believe, to the last 3 years. Yeah, the big 3 is out of our schedule, but the big 3 just seems to have changed names.
Yeah, I think that's fair at this point. But again, I think I think Michigan. I think it'll be really interesting to kind of see how they fare. And I think Penn State, is really kind of entrenched itself as kind of that next tier right there. But again, I think it is a chance. I think this year, I think we could kind of see. I was kind of going back and forth whether Nebraska could be that surprise team in the Big Ten this year, kind of depending on how Dylan Raiola does. But so we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, like you said, just kind of being for Maryland to really be able to break away from that and to like you said, just kind of continue to dominate Rutgers and control that series. It's a win to move into this style versus the division format. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the schedule only matters if we have a good squad, and we got good things coming back, and we have questions coming back. I think, it's only fair to start with the biggest questions in the room. Obviously, you have the quarterback question, but we've at least seen some of it. The biggest question, completely, like literal unknown for most fans, is the offensive line and what we're going to do. You lose every starter. That doesn't happen. That's not a normal thing for football. You lose every starter on the offensive line. Where do you see us standing? Is this going to be an absolute reset to the terrible ACC lines we started with when we got bullied? Or have we done okay filling the holes and getting back to at least the last couple years of line.
Yeah, I think obviously Maryland, at this point, in the spring, Maryland was able to kind of lean on their three portal additions from that came in December. Luba, Alan Huron. Both of those guys were able to practice with the team even during bowl prep, heading into the bowl game against Auburn. Josh Kaltenberger, he arrived very shortly thereafter. He's been doing a good job really at center. So those guys, at center, guard, and tackle, with Huron being, I think, more of a right tackle than a left. But, Coach Braswell has been open about the fact that none of these guys are really penciled into an exact position. Obviously, the Isaiah Wright news broke on camp, and it was a brutal blow happened on his third workout after he arrived at Maryland, and it's a type of injury, freak injury really for Maryland, and Maryland the last couple of years has done a really good job of avoiding a lot of these season-ending type of injuries. So it's a pretty brutal development. Obviously, you look back at the spring, Maryland had a chance to reel in both Chase Mitchell and Isaiah Wright. Chase Mitchell kind of just taking as much NIL money as he could before he went to Vandy, and then obviously Wright was a big coup before he blew before he suffered a season-ending injury. So with him sidelined, I think Andre Roy has a chance to really step up, and we'll see. Kyle Long's another guy. He can really step up into that offensive line, and Isaac Bunyan, who's a guy Mike Loxley was really high on in the spring, was kind of it seemed like you could potentially move back to the defensive side of the ball through offseason workouts, but stuck around at guard, and I could see him potentially pushing for that first team unit, but plenty to sort out at that position. I think there's a lot of confidence in kind of the individual pieces right now, but obviously just kind of with the offensive line, it's about developing chemistry. So I think that's kind of where the unit's at, just kind of developing it as one, and kind of getting that cohesion together before week one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Roy's somebody that this show specifically has been waiting for blow up since day one. I mean, that was somebody that I fell in love with his tape as soon as I saw it. I don't follow the high school kids anywhere near as deep as you do to know beforehand, but like when we got that commitment, I'm like, this dude's going to be an absolute mauler. Now, I saw him being like a big time guard for us more than a tackle. So, but still, I think that he if he takes the step he's been supposed to, but I thought it would have happened even last year. Then yeah, sure, we could have right back where we're supposed to be. It's going to be a big question. It's going to be a big, our strength comes right now with our running backs probably. I mean, we have big time wide receivers too, but then of course you have brand new quarterbacks, but the running backs can only be as good as the line in front of them. So everything kind of hinges on at least having above average line play. After that, if you can get above average line play, our offense has got enough weapons that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and obviously, this offseason, Brian Braswell, obviously he's come back. Damian Roblowski, he's done a good job to add that second. And then Brian Ferentz, he's another guy, I know he's been really credited to really find a solution and to be part of finding the solution to Maryland improving the run game in 2024. But, his expertise along the offensive line, and you're kind of looking at 3 offensive line coaches for Maryland this year. So that's a big boost, not just for the now, for the tomorrow. Therese Davis, Ryan Howerton, who, got a chance to see him worked with the second team at right guard last week. Definitely, I think it's the number one question right now. So it will be interesting to see how it kind of gets resolved. But no doubt it's getting full attention.
Yeah, I mean, as of now, the future does look bright. Obviously, we're just coming off the commitment of Gilchrist just 48 hours ago. But it is one of those, like, as the tortured Maryland fan, you're like, can we win enough games this year to make sure this doesn't fall apart? Like, these guys stick it through. Everybody's saying all the right things, and we'll get into the recruiting farther, later in the show. I'm very happy with where that's at. But yeah, the offensive line hinges on so much. The guy behind the offensive line, are we seeing any clarity in the quarterback race? I don't think there is.
No, I mean, I think I also would say it's kind of just premature at this point. Especially going into, they'll put on pads for the first time on Tuesday. They'll have the first scrimmage on Saturday. So I think that's kind of maybe when we'll start to see that, and potentially new that next wave of talent, who are kind of those next playmakers in the program. I think that's kind of when we start to see all that really materialize. But again, I think that kind of, Billy and MJ, I think those two, I think the longer it goes for MJ, the more reps he gets, the more time he gets within the offense. And again, he's done a really good job just really getting in the extra reps, whether it's inside Jones Hill House, working with Coach Aaron Campbell, who works really closely who has worked really closely with Malik Washington throughout his high school career. He'll be the Spalding OC this season as well. And again, MJ Morris being able to work with Coach Locks, getting the scheme down, the playbook down. It's just about being a master of the offense rather than just knowing the plays, the routes. Becoming, like I said, the master. But not to discredit Billy Edwards, he's right there as well every time you talk to people about him. There's a lot of content with what he's doing and a lot of trust in Billy as well. But from players and just he's won a lot of people over. So again, I think it would be a little bit premature at this point to kind of say I think Billy or MJ. But I will say this offense probably is going to look a little bit different this season than it did last.
Yeah. So you do see it as at least a 2-horse race and not a 3 anymore. Cam Edge would not be in that argument at this moment.
I mean, I think, I don't want to say like 100% no. I think, I think Cam is kind of in that conversation. I think everyone kind of realizes, Cam probably has the biggest arm in the room, but I think it's probably more likely that it's coming down to Billy and MJ at this point. And again, I think Cam did a really good job. Probably has the strongest arm, but I think it's probably going to the 2 veteran guys right now.
Yeah,
guys with a little bit more experience right now.
If I had my bet, I would say that it's MJ at this point. Kind of going into the spring game, going back there, I thought it was going to be, from reading what you had going on and everything, all the tea leaves of how not knowing the offense was a big hindrance. I didn't see as much of a difference on field, as much of a lead as I thought Billy would have because of that. Now, of course, it's a spring game, and it's a watered-down, small playbook they're probably running, so maybe that's why I didn't see the difference versus the full thing, but it definitely seemed like almost an even run already at the spring game.
I completely agree. I think the only thing that really stuck out to me is that, like, MJ, like, kind of in the second quarter, going into the third, like, he looked just more comfortable. It just, again, just kind of with the more reps, the longer the drives, the more comfort. So I think athletically, there's a lot to like with MJ. So I think that's something to kind of keep an eye on.
And I think it gives you the most flexibility because, I mean, obviously with Billy, he's already been, second fiddle and a useful one. He's already been, 1, 2, 3 rushing touchdowns as a second string quarterback. He's been a weapon that Locks has used. So, like, if MJ ends up your starter, it doesn't mean you don't see Billy anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But if Billy's the starter, maybe there is a way MJ is worked in, but we don't know what it is. We've seen how they use Billy as the second string quarterback, and it was fun. It was good to see.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that really thinks week 1, like, I wouldn't be shocked if first drive MJ's out there, second drive Billy's out there. Like, I mean, hey, week 2 we got Maryland has their conference opener against Michigan State. Another chance to kind of let this ride another week. But like you said, Billy or Loxley talked about it last week at Media Day, or I believe it was at Big Ten Media Day, one of these times. But you said, look, you guys, because you guys think Billy's a runner, it's because that's how we've used him. It doesn't mean that Billy can only be a runner. We can use him a different number of ways. Then at College Park Media Days last week, he said, we got 2 guys. So I could see the short yardage situations. You get a chance to turn to Billy. So, obviously, you like you said, you kind of have the ability to turn to the guys and whatnot. But I think it'll be a little bit more time before we really see a starter materialize.
Yeah, I know Talia was a little guy, but man, when you watch Billy stand behind that line, it just looks different. It just looks like the prototypical, like, at my childhood, the late 90s, Big Ben, statuesque, like, guy in charge back there. It's it's just the old guy talking. Obviously, we got the Kyler Murrays and the all the those type of guys that are dominating football right now. That's just not where my childhood saw it. And so when I see Billy back there, I'm like, I want it to work. I want that to be the guy. But whoever's best for the job and can get us there is where we'll be. With all the talent this quarterback room has really stacked over their years. Like you said, I mean, you brought in Edge as a possible future. You have Champ Long that we all had big thoughts about and was part of like the Elite 11 quarterback class and stuff. Do you find there's any hurt feelings developing? Do you think there's any obvious like I thought this was going to be my time problems, or is it everyone on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, especially going into the season, I think everyone's just kind of dialed in. And again, Maryland's only today, so Monday will mark their fifth practice. Tuesday will mark sixth. So again, it's still pretty early. But again, a lot of just the team camaraderie, the team chemistry, it's something that has really been talked about these last couple of years. But this senior class has kind of done a good job of really kind of in each position group. There's guys that are kind of bringing the next wave of guys under their wing. So obviously, there are guys who want some more recognition and whatnot, but not from a sense of, hey, if I'm not starting tomorrow, if I'm not getting first reps tomorrow, I'm dipping out of here and like that. So, but well.
It's a good problem to have. I mean, the big time schools have always had this just like stack of talent behind, but with being the portal and all of those things going on, it makes those more nervous problems to have. It used to be much less likely somebody's going to leave and sit out a year and whatever, just because they had their feelings hurt. But now when you snap your fingers and end up starting somebody else, it makes you start stressing a little bit. But, great problem to have. Stacking talent in the QB room has really never been a thing I've said at University of Maryland. So it's good to have those words coming across my lips.
Shout out Sean Petty, man.
Yeah. Well, I love linebackers playing quarterback. It's my favorite thing at University of Maryland. All right, so those are the big questions. Obviously, loaded running back room. Which we got to talk a little bit. I mean, obviously, everyone knows Hemby is the man. McDonald's been there for a long time. Again, another one that could have had hurt feelings and left if he wanted to. The way he kind of took a step back from where he was, but seems to be just a good teammate. And then spring game, Nolan Ray looks like a dude. Like, did you know this was coming?
Oh yeah, this was. So I mean, he had a chance. He kind of flashed whatnot, kind of going into last camp, and then he just got hurt super early. Got hurt in the Towson game. Wasn't really able to practice whatnot. But I mean, even going into this off season, it was pretty clear. There was I posted it even coming out of Big Ten Media Days, but it's been a pretty clear consensus that he's the fastest guy in the room. And even back in the spring, he was kind of able to kind of showcase everything. Even a couple of the spring practices, there's a little bit of Lorenzo Harrison to him, the way he's kind of shifty, agile, just a really tough tackle in open space. And again, there's not, in years past, there's, 3 or 4 guys talking trash amongst each other saying, oh, I'm the fastest guy, I'm the fastest. And they all have, their claim, but there's no dispute this year when it comes to Nolan Ray. So, you mentioned Roman Hemby, DeJuan Williams as well. He's another guy that, he can really, find that space in between the tackles and has that second level speed to really break free. So I think he can kind of find a space. Josiah McLaurin, I think he's another guy who can kind of find a role in the passing game. But I think Nolan Ray really has a chance to be a playmaker for this offense.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. We lost a running back to the portal at the end of last year. Somebody Fred was really high on.
He's playing Littleton.
Well, no, Littleton played, but it was one of the freshmen that hadn't played. I think he went to Virginia Tech or something.
Oh, Ramon Brown.
Ramon Brown was somebody that Fred was very high on, like just the body of looking like an NFL running back and things, of thinking that the future could be bright. So we were a little worried there, but man, again, this just seems to be stacking talent different than we used to. And so you don't really know it till you see it anymore. And I think we have plenty of horses back there. The wideouts, again, friend of the show, Ty Felton, unlimited speed, seemingly. Don't ask NCAA football about that because that's a sore subject. But my man, as long as he can keep his hands legit, nobody's sticking with him.
Yeah, I think him and KP, Caden Prather, I think both those guys are just kind of alpha dogs in the room, 1A, 1B, their blend of size and speed, I think is just kind of perfect. And I think really the wide receiver room, it's kind of really be who's that third guy that emerges. We'll get a chance to talk to Shalik Nas after Tuesday's practice. And, I posted, he was a guy that, I think had to really be sure that he wanted to be at Maryland after the 2023 season. Took some time, took some convincing, and then he went out, had a really good spring. And I think he really has a chance to kind of build on that this fall camp to be that third wide receiver. But he's far from the only one. Octavian Smith Jr., we've seen flashes from him. Obviously, he punched in, I believe it was a 33, 34-yard touchdown against Michigan State last year. Braden Wazowski, Ryan Manning has come down with a couple of really nice contested catches in traffic. Really smooth route runner who did a really good job. Just kind of everything kind of came naturally to him. It was just kind of about, just kind of growing and kind of like having it all kind of come together. He was a young guy for his class as well. So I think a lot of these guys, this is kind of that year where you're going to see that next wave really, really try and separate itself.
Yeah, Shalik Knox and Octavian Smith really seemed to flash at the end of 2022, thinking for some big things last year, and it just didn't really materialize to the step that you thought they would take. So I could see why there would have been some growing pains in there and some doubts develop. But I'm glad he stuck it out. I think that he has shown the talent to play at this level, and that we're gonna have spots for him. And I can't think of another team that rotates receivers out more than we do. So like, you're gonna be on the field. Just get open.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think last year, then that the last 3-4 games of the season, you got a chance to kind of see his role kind of expand a little bit more. So I think this is kind of his time to shine. I think he all eyes are kind of on him to really capitalize on the moment.
All right. Well, the defensive side of the ball, there's far less questions about. I mean, yes, we lost, big name in Barham that's gonna go over to Michigan and start for them. That's unfortunate, but our front seven looks better than I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think just kind of with the defensive line as a whole, I think Jordan Phillips it's kind of ironic, probably the one, non-upperclassman in the room. He's probably the first guy mentioned. I mean, he's a guy, even out of high school, they were all over. In the portal, they were all over. I mean, this was kind of always kind of recognized as kind of being that dude. And I think he showed flashes last year. I think there were some times where, it was some learning moments, some growing up moments. And I think this offseason, I mean, I don't know if there's anyone that is able to outwork him. I mean, the way that he's, whether it's on the field, on the turf, inside the weight room, I mean, he's always getting in work. And I mean, he's already a big dude, like just a thick frame, but you can even tell like the muscle definition in the mass when you see him in person. I mean, he's a massive human being. And I think, with the big year this year, I think he has a chance to really go to the NFL, becoming another guy. Obviously, Tommy King-Basote, Tyzay Johnson, Quayshawn Fuller, all those guys. I think, but all those guys, I expect them to really beat guys. And Daniel Owens, he's been credited as a guy who can really take that next step along the defensive line. So, I think this is it's a deep defensive line room. And then Ruben Hippolyte back for a bit the year, and I think that's your senior leader on and off the field. Caleb Wheatland, he's back. I think he's a dependable guy, underrated 3-star, originally out of Avalon, local guy. So again, this front seven: Kellen Wyatt, another guy, Donnell Brown. There's just Neo Avery. I mean, there's just it's a deep front seven.
Yeah, absolutely. You got some question marks, on the back end, but the more and more I do this shell and tell countdown, I don't know how many listeners are following. The more and more I see names, and I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, he did have flashes. Oh yeah, we do have like some big name options to take these fields. So yeah, we're not sure who it is, but like I think they got options.
I mean, Levon Johnson, Dylan Fontes, both of those guys, those were guys that really got a chance to get their feet wet last year. Levon Johnson, he's a guy, he's played, coming out of a scary injury in the spring. It was a practice in DC. It was, I believe, a week before the spring game, sat out as a precaution, but he's good now. But both of those guys are definitely expected to be big time integral players in the rotation. So I think this defensive line room is going to be led by some veterans, and then similar to the wide receiver room, start to see some of that next wave really start to separate itself and try and make a dent in the rotation.
And then even in the front seven, some of the backup we have, like, is it Michael Harris, the twin that we got? Yeah, Michael Harris was something we expected big thing from. Looks like he's got the right frame. He obviously has dudes like Ruben Hippolyte to be studying under and guiding him in the right way. So somebody that you can really see building for the future and getting into that rotation, like keeping these guys fresh.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Wingate, I expect with Daniel Wingate, Mike Harris, I expect with those guys, Keyshawn Flowers, he's just arrived from Spalding, but those Spalding guys, they benefit from playing that Maryland style defense. And they're just very smart, high IQ guys. So they come in, they do a really good job picking things up. I expect him to kind of expect him to be a name to kind of see a little bit more, uh, and then develop into a household name for sure in this defense.
So we talked a little UConn. Like clearly, this is a warm up. If this goes poorly, then we just pack up the season and move on. I guess.
Yeah,
Talking about rotating quarterbacks.
oh, we're gonna be doing like deep diving into the point guard rotation. That we're just gonna be like just shifting gears completely. So,
I do wish this was the year where we did not have Michigan State week 2. I mean, not that Michigan State's like the most daunting,
yeah,
thrust on the schedule, but it'd be nice to have that Villanova week 2 to really get our quarterback situation in line.
I think it's fair.
But sometimes it's just they're also early in the schedule. They're also working out kinks, so it is what it is.
And again, I think just kind of like what I said earlier, I think it's a chance for Maryland to kind of be really vanilla, kind of get the rust off, kind of finalize everything. Not pushing past UConn or looking past UConn and they're pushing saying that it's an easy win or anything like that. But I think that week 1 game gives Maryland a chance to really set that barometer and really mask some things going into week 2. Picking up that first conference win is big. So I think Maryland kind of opening up the playbook week 2. I think that's kind of a big move for them.
At Virginia is a little scarier than I think people understand. I think that freshman quarterback last year was way better than anyone thought he was going to be. A year in, we'll have to see. It's still an ACC opponent. I don't expect anything crazy to go on. I do expect us to take that 90% of the time, but I will give that man his flowers. That's a legit quarterback they got down there in Virginia.
Yeah, he was special. I was really interested to see whether he stayed at Virginia or he got plucked away by someone else. But that's a guy I think that the Virginia team can build around. Fortunately, they don't have too much to build around, though.
Yeah, well, that is very fortunate. Then we got Villanova, my wish for week 2. So, I mean, that should be another get-right game. You got some people with some injuries that need to sit one out and get a little healthy. That sounds great. I can't imagine that being a stumbling block at home versus Villanova, but we've seen some dumb shit in that stadium. We lost to a UCF team that we should never lost to. We've lost,
I've watched us lose to Temple when I was in school. So
yeah, we lost to Bowling Green. That was on the road. That was not at home, but still, in years where we weren't even really that bad. I mean, we were bad. Don't get me wrong, worse than we have in the last couple, but shouldn't have lost to Bowling Green bad. So, you can't, as a Maryland fan, you're always hesitant with any guarantees, but this should not be a problem. At Indiana feels like the first one that if you lose it, you're going to be really sad. I mean, obviously all the other ones are sad, but more of a coin flip and it's a problem.
Yeah, I think this Indiana team, I think they have some interesting, some talent. I just think it's a little bit tough, just kind of with so much portal, so many new additions. So just kind of in year 1, it's a tall task to kind of get everyone kind of on the same page. Elijah Surratt, he's kind of being talked about as one of the top receivers in the Big Ten. Really productive guy over at JMU. Who's following him over. Following head coach Kurt Signetti over to IU. He played over at St. Francis as well. So they've got some dudes over there, but just don't know if I see it in year 1. But I do think this Indiana and Michigan State team, come year 2, come year 3, I think they'll be kind of back up on top. Not on top, in terms of
where they were.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be competitive again for sure.
Yeah, the Michigan State where they flipped back and forth between Tier 2 and Tier 3 Big Ten. That world where I always said we needed to be was the Michigan State of the Big Ten.
That is fact.
Northwestern, they've always been a problem on the road. They've never really been a problem at home. I don't expect that to change. I always joke with Northwestern. I feel like that Maryland feeds off disappointing an away crowd, and they don't have a crowd, and so Maryland's so flat there.
They honestly, I think they feast off of the lack of energy, the lack of atmosphere, because Northwestern they know what to expect when they go out. But I mean, I remember hearing last year when they went out to Northwestern, they get out there, it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. It's like it was bad weather. There's no fans, so they're just like.
Literally no fans. People make fun of Maryland for no fans, but this is 10% of that.
There's nothing. It's Rutgers November.
Yeah, it's awful. Then you have the big one, and so if things go right, I think that I have them undefeated at this point, and you have them most likely undefeated at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be a stumble. There always could be. Where's his Maryland? But
I mean, I do think it's realistic. You know, I think if anything, I think when I was talking to someone about a month ago, I said either the Indiana or the Michigan State game
they could be a stumble,
could be
100%.
a stumble, but I don't think it'll be both. I could see it being one.
So
Uh,
one loss to undefeated, and one loss might get us to this dream scenario, but undefeated certainly does. If you have, this is the Maryland trifecta, we've always made fun of our fans. You have to have a good team with hype, you have to have a good opponent, and you have to have good weather. And if these things come together, if you were a one or no loss team, preferably against USC, it's a big name. I don't even care if they're good or bad. Maryland is fans are name whores, and USC has a name. And so if you have good weather, a 5-1 or preferably 6-0 Maryland team, this could be that waking giant moment that we've all been waiting for. It
yeah,
really could be.
I think it could be. I think the only, not to throw rain on the parade, but I think the only possible way that if they lose to Indiana right before that, going into the USC to kind of deflate that. That would be kind of the only maybe hindrance, but yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of really shaping up to kind of be that. I also do kind of think this USC team. I do think that they could potentially take a step back. They're very high on Miller Moss. Obviously, they have Zachariah Branch, who's probably one of the fastest guys in the country, one of the top receivers. He's going to be day one, day two pick next year. But defensively, I think they struggled last year. There's a lot that's kind of turned over. So I don't know that USC is going to be I'm not sure that I'm expecting them or penciling them to be a top 25 team when they come to College Park week 7. I think it's week 7. So I think that we'll see about that. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's really all the makings for it. And kind of like you said, if Maryland kind of capitalize on these opportunities, there's a case to be made for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we do have Northwestern between Indiana and Northwestern, so yes, it would be a little bit down, but at least you'd have a step. And we kind of already saw the I think it was it Temple stumble before the Penn State game where we packed out the stadium and got absolutely blitzed by Penn State from the get go. So the one loss has been excused in the past. It is the big name, I think, more than the top 25, just because again, we got a lot of casuals we're trying to pull off the couch. The name USC to them is going to mean more than if it was Northwestern ranked number 17. Like it just seems to be the way that our fan base works. I don't know why. I don't love it, but I would like the stadium to be full with home fans every now and then. So I do think that the one loss or the no loss team and good weather, because it is the number one. We are prisses. We can't go to basketball if it's raining. They've told me this over and over again. It's an indoor sport, but for some reason it matters. It could be good, and I agree with you with the USC thing. Like, yes, I did they blow out Louisville in a bowl game without their all world pain as nails quarterback that I wish played for us. I'm not going to be negative about him at all. Caleb Williams was sitting out, and they still absolutely destroyed a 10-3 Louisville team that I don't think anybody really thought was going to happen with a backup quarterback and a bad defense. But it is an ACC squad, and all the ACC teams are overrated, even their 10-3 ones. So I think they're beatable. So if we get a full stadium. And it's a coin flip. I'll just go with a coin flip. I'm not even going to say we're favored against USC. I will literally flip a coin. That's your waking up moment. And at that point, your season's made. I think if you win that game, then I can stop stressing about all the free grandma guys leaving us. That we have showed enough that we are close enough that if you actually come, we can take this to where you guys think it can go. And I just really hope it's not raining. You'll see me crying in the rain if it is a USC rain out there.
Byron will be one with the rain.
Yes, it will just, you won't be able to tell, but I promise there'll be all kinds of extra waterworks there. I'll still be in section 7 with nobody else, so just be me.
Yeah, no, obviously, like you said, just kind of just piggybacking off that, I think. Yeah, no, I think this is kind of that chance. Probably that one real chance to get that signature win in College Park this year. I don't know that I would really kind of quantify as that.
No, I was just gonna be the revenge game for losing Dante Demas while we were doing well, and Demas's knee eliminated all the air in the stadium and we just suffocated underneath them.
Yeah.
That's what the Iowa game will be. It's just full revenge game.
Yeah, I think that one probably needs a trophy at this point. But,
Yeah.
but
Could Dante just bring his knee brace and we'll just award it?
just honor him in the second quarter. But yeah, I think Maryland really has a chance to get that signature win against USC, and we'll see. It just kind of getting feedback from fans. It really seems like everyone's targeting, obviously with it being homecoming game this year, but a lot of people are circling that game as the one that they want to come back for in College Park. So should be a fun atmosphere for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's not all glowing. I'm not going to go full homer on you. I do think that both Penn State and Oregon are real question marks. 10% or less win rate on those. You tell me there's a chance. And I do think at Minnesota, I know I'm scarred because we got destroyed when I took the Shell and Tell trip up there. They've never been as good as they were that year. That was their one shining moment that we decided to take the trip. But, they're a good Big Ten team on the road, so there's always a stumble chance there as well. How do you feel about those games?
Yeah, I think that's kind of. I think Maryland's probably a more talented team than Minnesota is going into this year.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably the biggest trap game out of all of them. Just kind of coming out of USC being at Minnesota. In Minnesota, it's not saying it's an Ohio State or going down to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama, but it's not an easy place to play. So I think this is a little bit tough. Kind of leaning towards a loss, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. So that pretty much wraps us up. I'd look at it on my side. I got Oregon and Penn State as losses, unfortunately. I got Minnesota and Indiana as losing one of those. I'm not going to put a number on it, but one of them. So that's 3 losses in the homer world of Ryan. There's probably 4 because I know I'm a homer. So don't know who the other 4th's going to be. Maybe we lose both of my coin flips and I don't feel so stupid, or maybe we lose one that's really going to hurt my feelings. I'm not sure.
No, for sure. We actually might need a September stumble to just kind of just humble the fan base. So I think we're just getting so used to the 4-0, 5-0 starts. Just a little adversity never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, man.
I don't want it. I want at minimum 5-1 going to SC so that I could be watching the weather report like a crazy person for all 14 days leading up.
I think it'll be interesting, but again, I think just kind of going into it, I think it'll be interesting. Like we talked about, just a lot of confidence. Locks talked about just being comfortable and confident going into this year. I think this defense is really going to be able to keep Maryland in a lot of games, especially in the road games. I mentioned it for subscribers on the site, but no, I'm going on a tangent. But I mean, Ruben Hippolyte, he's a guy who looked fast as hell before, and he managed to look fast as hell, faster than what he did last year. So I think that there's a lot to like in this defense. So we shall see how it all shakes out. Got first scrimmage this weekend, so it shall be interesting, man.
All right. So do you have a prediction number, or are you shying away for now?
I'll go 8-4.
Okay.
8-4, 7-5. I think that's kind of what I'm bouncing between right now. But I think 8-4. I think Oregon at Penn State. I think those are going to be tough. I do anticipate Maryland being able to beat Rutgers. I just think Maryland, even with Rutgers, I think there's a lot to like with Rutgers this year. Just with, like I said, with the returning experience with Kyle Monungdai back. But if you stack the Maryland and Rutgers roster together, it's night and day to me. I think this Maryland roster is more talented and deeper. So I think 7-5, 8-4, I think is realistic. And I think that would be a win considering,
losing Talia and losing your entire offensive line,
exactly.
And you don't take a step back in the win column.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, losing two offensive linemen, 3 offensive linemen to the NFL. That's a lot to replace. I think this has kind of always been that year where we'll see kind of how it all comes together. I think defensively, again, I think there's a lot to like, but I think 8-4 is definitely possible.
Well, I'll take either one of those numbers, and I think that most of our free grandma participants would be okay with those numbers. So we can't end this show without just talking about the absolute firestorm that Loxley's been on. We kind of knew this was his swan song year. We've been talking about Malik Washington since he was, I guess, a freshman. I mean, it feels like forever. And this was kind of the play even when Loxley was um, interim head coach before he was head coach with Simba. Why can't I come up
Yeah.
with his name? Ohio State's quarterback.
Wait,
Anyway, that was
wait.
the whole idea. Yeah, yeah. So that was the whole idea, was like bring the head and he recruits for you. And like Malik Washington was that next, like, well, we tried it with Caleb, but that was very unrealistic. I feel like where we were at the moment, and this has been the thing. Um, and it seems to be growing. I like what everybody's saying. I like the Gilchrist conversation about being a leader and not a follower, and not wanting to just go in the footsteps of things. It reminded me a lot of Ruben Hippolyte's comments when he was being recruited about, I want to go somewhere and be the greatest of all time. And like, maybe we haven't reached that level with him at Maryland, but he's been a very good, player. He's been very productive at this level, been an unbelievable leader in the locker room and, just in general. So and he's done what he promised. He was paid here all 4 years, or fifth year now, and has grown this program to what we thought it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think just kind of with Malik especially, I think he was always kind of trending Maryland. I think really this spring on, I think it was really tough for him, really any team to really beat Maryland. There were a couple teams, Baylor kind of flirted in there. Penn State kind of seemed like they were gonna kind of kick the tires, and then kind of didn't, and they kind of went hot and cold for a little bit. And it was always go where you're wanted, and I think that's kind of been a big emphasis. You look at Malik Washington, Zamir Smith is another guy. You got Malik Washington once he officially joined the class. Zamir Smith. He took a long look, and he ended up flipping to Maryland on his official visit. Announced it a couple weeks later. Bryce Jenkins, he was another guy where it was just kind of felt like all these dominoes that fell. Malik Washington, Bryce Jenkins, Zamir Smith, into Jalen Gilchrist. One helped the other. And now the hope is that Maryland with Jalen Gilchrist in the fold, able to kind of build off that into Messiah Delhomme, who should be announcing within the next week. I know he's targeting on the 10th. I don't know if that's 100% announced or 100% finalized just yet, but definitely nearing the end there. So I think, like you said, Mike Loxley's been able to put all these pieces together. All these top targets came in that June 21st weekend for their official visits. Some of these guys have already announced. Sydney Stewart, Delmar White, both those guys. Jaden Sips, who came in a month before that, both those guys came in. Then haven't been able to get on everyone. Blake Woodby, he's another guy who ended up picking Auburn, with Maryland being a close second. But I've been consistent really since this 2025 class picked up. This is probably going to be Mike Loxley's most complete, most talented class from top to bottom. I mean, Nasir Taylor is a guy who is going to probably already be forgotten by a lot of guys, but he's going to be a very productive guy. And you talk about the work ethic and the type of comments that Ruben Hippolyte and Malik Washington kind of have kind of talked about. That's really just the type of work ethic that these guys have from top to bottom. Sydney Stewart is another guy who's just a tireless work ethic. So I know I've talked about the last 3-4 years just about this culture really shifting. All these commits are gonna continue exactly what the culture shift that we're seeing. It's going to be more of the same. So that's why this 2025 class is so good.
Yeah, I mean, and we just lost our 3-star commit that went down to Miami, but he went to his home school. Like, we can't be mad at those type of guys. That's what we're arguing here. So if you're gonna lose a few of these guys that used to be like, I'm going there for a guaranteed starting roster when you're making your recruiting class better, and also I'm not gonna get mad at anybody for going for the home school because it's all I've ever asked for.
Exactly. when Maryland fans want their hometown to stay home, how can you be mad about a Florida kid staying home?
Exactly. It's just a reasonable take. I know it's hard to ask for in fans to have a reasonable take, but if you want your home school to get home kids, let their home school get home kids.
Yeah, all you say is just remember who was first.
Yep, there it is. All right, man. Well, I think that was a good one for the first show back. I'm glad to have you back in the fold. I'm glad to get back talking to football. My first love for the Maryland Terrapins. And hopefully it's a good thing. We should be back once more before the season, and then every game is the plan.
Yeah, I think it should. We'll figure out schedule and whatnot. But echoing exactly what you said, man. Excited, happy that this came to fruition. It's been about two months in the making, so I'm glad everything is in place now, so that it's possible, and put it together, kick-ass show before, and looking forward to doing it again, brother.
Great. Well, guys, if you're happy to hear us back together, if you're happy to see Shell and Tell, let us know. Put it out there, because I think I might be like shadow banned on Twitter because I don't pay them $8 a month. The countdown is not getting the kind of of showing that it used to when you didn't have to pay for Twitter. So I'm pretty sure that's the issue. So you see us out there. Let us know you heard the show. Let us know what you want to hear on the next episodes. And click that retweet button, because apparently it's just not getting the eyes that it did before you had to pay $9 to have friends. Till next time, guys, here's to wishing all is well under the shell.